Hello, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to Global Focus today. I am Reverend Dr. Sharri Johnson, your host, and our guest today is Reverend Dr. Claire Summerhill. And today's visit is going to be a little different from her last visit because instead of talking about just her ministry in general, she's going to walk us through her book, Walking on Water. Now, you need to know a little bit about Reverend Dr. Claire before we start. One of them is that, like most CSL and Science of Mind ministers, most New Thought ministers, she didn't start out in New Thought. She was born to recent converts to the Mormon church and raised as a Mormon. And then she left that in her early 30s and became a Catholic. And then she discovered CSL and New Thought in the early 2000s. And now she's a practitioner, a minister, and a doctorate of divinity. And she's written a wonderful book called Walking on Water. Thank you for coming back, Claire. I'm so grateful that you came to tell us because I want to know more about it. So tell us, where did Walking on Water come from?
Well, everything has an interesting story. And we had a minister, it was actually a Unity minister. I was started in Unity, and he taught me so much, and I loved him. And he wanted to write his story, the story of his awakening and his path. And I offered to help him, and we started working on it. And then I realized I don't want to write his book. I want to write my own book. I have things to say. And so that, often we hear that nudge of spirit, and that is what got me started. Was I can serve him, I can help him, we can work together. But really, it was my own message that I needed to get out. And I had often thought about this kind of tension or harmony between what I call choice and surrender. So we're often told different things as we listen to teachers and gurus and leaders. And on the one hand, we hear, you're responsible for your life. You need to take charge of your life. You need to create. You need to see what's ahead of you, create mental equivalents, set goals, and take action. And that's what you need to do. But then at the same time, we hear, you just need to relax and go with the flow and trust and allow spirit, and everything will be fine. And it seemed like these were kind of in conflict sometimes. And sometimes, like, which is it? Is this a time where I should be taking action? I should be setting goals and working and creating what I want? Or is this a time where I should be going with the flow, allowing, trusting, knowing everything will be fine? And that's when this idea of this book called Walking on Water came into being. I have always loved the Bible stories, the metaphors and myths and parables of the Bible are powerful to me. And I realized that this little story in the Bible, this familiar story of some of the apostles being in a ship at sea in the midst of a tempest, a storm, and seeing something across the water and realizing it was Jesus walking toward them across the water. And they were actually frightened at first, like, what's going on? But then as he approached, he called out to Peter. And Peter actually said to him, call to me. And Jesus said, come. And Peter took that step out on the water and also walked on the water until he forgot and got scared and began to sink. And Jesus took his hand and they helped him back into the boat. And it was interesting, in ministry school, we were once discussing this story, and the metaphors and everything's simply metaphor and symbol. And what students said, did it really happen? And of course, the teacher kind of sighed, like, it's not the point. It doesn't really matter whether it really happened or not. So I realized that that story contains the key to this balance. I call it the choice surrender balance. And so I looked at the 7 pieces of this story and realized that they're a balance between choice steps and surrender steps. And that's how it works. And sometimes they're even happening at the same time. And so this is the 7 steps of walking on water. When is it time to choose? When is it time to let go? And the first part of the story is basically when they saw Jesus went off on the water in the midst of the storm, and they let go of their old beliefs of how reality worked. It's the first step in accomplishing what seems impossible, to let go of those ideas we have, which, oh my gosh, they're so ingrained. Like, no, this is the way it is. That was the first thing. Let go. Just let go of those beliefs. And then, so that's a surrender step. Let go of what I've always thought was the way reality worked. That's just the way it is. Then the next step is a choice step. And that was when Peter accepted the invitation. So I believe the universe is always speaking to us, sending us messages, sending us gifts, trying so hard to communicate with us. And we are so deaf and blind, but the universe never, ever gives up. And so the next thing is this choice. Saying yes, I accept the invitation. I'll do it. I'll try. Then we go back to a surrender step. The next thing Peter had to do was let go of the boat. The other apostles, I picture them kind of hiding under the gear and hunkering down and going, why are you doing this? But he was willing to let go, again, to let go of security, safety, and say, I am willing to let go of my limitations. And then immediately at the same time, the next action, choice step, to step out boldly onto the water. And the decks and see what's possible. We've got to do both. And they often seem like they happen in the same minute, letting go of the past and stepping out boldly into the direction of our future. And then we have that sort of instant in our life that I call walking on water, which has so many names. We call it enlightenment or bliss, or the experience of being one with all that is, the knowing, the truth, the freedom that comes when we get it's all perfect. I call that the walking on water experience. And it's amazing, and we seek it, and we've all experienced it. And our goal, I think, is to have more and more of it. And as we teach, to create a space where other people can experience that, know their oneness, know that perfection. But guess what? It doesn't last. And now we have the next surrender step. Jesus started to sing. Not Jesus, Peter forgot. and he started to sink. Can you just picture him choking and gasping and maybe even saying to himself, what the hell was I thinking? That I could walk on water. What? Oh my gosh. It's kind of interesting in a way. I think of that sinking. It's kind of like a baptism in a way. Just going down into the water, it all goes away. And you surrender to it. That happens in life. We have those experiences where we just have to let go. We're not in control anymore. And then, of course, the next choice step is he chooses to take the hand that's stretched out to him. And he reaches up and takes that hand, and Jesus helps him get back into the boat. So this process and is ongoing, this in our lives of finding this balance. And so much of it is kind of trusting our intuition. Of course, so many of our spiritual practices, this is what we work on, which is this a time to take action, to set goals, to ask what's mine to do, what's next, create a mental equivalent, move out, take our power? Or is this a time to allow, to surrender? Now, I know some people don't like the word surrender, and I admit I had my time when I didn't like that either. I felt like, no, I'm not supposed to surrender. That felt like giving up or giving in. I'm supposed to be powerful and be the one who's acting, who's taking charge. And then, as I was working on this book, I realized a different idea about surrender. And to me now, surrender means saying to God, the universe, infinite spirit, whatever you call that reality, because that's what it is. It's simply reality in the way it works, is, I have an idea about how things might go, but what if we go with your idea instead? I like to think about it as, us asking the universe for a dried up crust of an old peanut butter sandwich because we're hungry. We say, if I could just have an old dried up crust of a peanut butter sandwich, I'd just be so happy. And here's God kind of puzzled, the universe. We like to think of it as something that can think, saying, well, I'm perfectly happy to give you your dried up crust of an old peanut butter sandwich if that's what you want. I can do that, but and here it is if that's what you really want. But I had this banquet planned for you. So when you think about surrender, that's what I like to think about. And when, people look at the story of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, and it also is, I think, got to be seen in a metaphorical, symbolic sense. And he's saying to God, I don't want to do this, but I will. And it seems like he's kind of giving up his power. And it's uncomfortable until I think of it in those terms. No, he was saying, well, I have sort of a limited ideas, but let's go with your idea. That's what surrender. So when I hear that word surrender, that's what I mean. Let's go with your idea. It's bigger than mine. I'm willing to accept it. So, of course, this is what we teach over and over, the creative process, how we create. And it's been very helpful for me to think of it in these terms of a balance between when it's time to take action, when it's time to choose, and when it's time to allow, to surrender. You've probably heard the reminder of the little song, Row, Row, Row Your Boat, that it summarizes all of this. Row, row, row your boat. That's taking action, like doing something gently down the stream. That's allowing, surrendering, letting go, going with the flow. And then, of course, merrily, 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 and there's 4 merrilies, only 3 rows, stepping into the joy and remembering that none of it's real. I love Rumi, as many of us do. I love his perspective. I love the way he sort of jerks you into a new way of seeing reality. And one of his stories that I love is about a king who had a blind falcon. So, although the falcon couldn't see, it was a powerful bird of noble and glorious, and flying, when it heard the king's call, always unerringly, it would return to the king's arm. And one day the falcon wandered away and was lost, and the king was looking everywhere for it. And he found the falcon in the tent of an old woman. The falcon had found its way into the tent of an old woman, and this woman had scolded and taken it in and had clipped its talons and had trimmed its wings so it couldn't fly. And she said, "Oh, who's been taking care of you? You risk it so much danger. Now you're safe." And instead of the wild food it was used to eating, she gave it some straw and said, "It's better. This is who you need to be." And when the king found the falcon, he said, "You left me for this hovel, this cramped, dirty place, eating straw with your wings clipped?" And of course, we're all like that falcon, wild, free, powerful, belonging in the place of a king. And we forget. And we let our wings be trimmed. We let our talons be clipped. We settle down and say, "Well, this is enough. I can eat this straw. At least I'm safe here." And all of our work, of course, is about awakening and remembering who we really are. And all these experiences of, accepting that there's another reality, being willing to let go of our hold on our old beliefs, being willing to step out in the direction of our dreams, being willing to start sinking at times, to sputter and gasp and feel utterly alone and scared, and then to reach up and take God's hand. And the whole process starts over again. So that's what's available. And that's a story that's told over and over again in so many traditions and sacred works. And it's available to us. So I don't know, Reverend Sharri, if you have any questions you'd like to ask me about my book, or like that sort of very brief overview of what it means to walk on water.
I want to start by showing a picture of your book and letting everybody know that it is absolutely available on Amazon.com and that they can order it anytime they want to, and they want to.
Thank you.
So what was the thing that you learned, the most important thing that you learned when you were writing this book?
You know, it's interesting. It seems like kind of a small book, but it's an incredible amount of work to write a book. And I think the most important thing I learned, so the subtitle of the book is Accomplishing Things That Seem Impossible. And so often, well, first, I don't have anything to say. Other people are smarter than me. Things have been said. Who am I to think that anything I say might make a difference? Or I can't, or I don't know what to do next. And it's not going to be good enough, or, you know, people I respect and admire are going to scoff and poke fun at different parts of it. And that was what I had to let go of. And not, you know, it was in process for quite a long time, you know, like ready to be finished and just not being able to take those last steps. It is self-published, which is just an amazing option that we have available today, that we can use, and to be able to just take the next step and the next step and make the decisions that had to be made, and to do it simply because I'm doing it, not to prove anything, not to, well, now finally people will respect me and realize this or that, because it wasn't to fix anything. Like, well, I better write this and then it'll make a difference. To do it simply to do it. And there's a freedom in that, because as long as whatever we do, whether it's setting out to write a book or whether it's setting out to create a relationship that works, create a life that works, accept a mission, accept a call, if we're doing it to try to fix something that's wrong, thinking, well, once I've done this, then everything will be okay, it's not going to help, because as soon as we do that, then we're going to have to do something else. So I think this sounds, you know, a little trite even, to do it, despite whatever you're thinking about yourself. And of course, I'm in a space now, it's time for me to write my next book. And now I'm right back in that place. Well, what do I have to say? Oh my gosh, there's just so many books out there. Well, it's not for any of that. It's because it's the next thing that I need to do. And so I think that's really what I learned is, I'll tell you a funny story. My son, who doesn't read much, he's dyslexic, but he read it after I wrote it, and he goes, Mom, there's just one thing I don't understand. Like, if you know all this stuff, how come you're so depressed all the time? So knowing it doesn't really make any difference. We just need to be reminded again and again and again and again. And I needed to be reminded of it enough that I needed to write it down. So that's what I learned.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now that you've already started writing the next book, because that story's the preface. That story has to be in the next book. I want the first copy.
Thank you. Thank you. You'll get it.
So there are some questions that I ask everybody, even people who are talking to us about books. So I'm going to ask you, because I know that life changes us from day to day and the answers won't be the same as they were last time you were here. So the first question is there anything that you want the folks who are watching this to know that I have not asked you about?
Oh my. I just encourage everyone listening to listen to that call that's coming from you across the water and take that step. Like, let go of the security of the boat that you've been holding on to and just take that step out onto the water, knowing you may sink, but help is available. So listen is just all I could say to any of you.
Okay, next question. Yeah. How do I put this? How does walking on water, the process of writing it, the process of living it, the process of practicing it, how does that encourage, enhance, support, pick your own verb, conscious evolution?
Well, in my mind, this is the process of conscious evolution, because this isn't something we do once. We do this over and over and over again in our lives. And each time it's a little bigger. It may start with small things. And we're doing it individually and together. As a society now, we're in a place of letting go of some of our very entrenched old beliefs. And, for instance, believing that war is a way to solve problems, and that by killing people and destroying things, we can make things better. So as humanity, we're in this process of evolving, of letting go, of seeing something new that's available, and being willing to take those first tentative steps out toward that new reality, being willing to fail and try again. So that's all that's going on, of course, is conscious evolution.
That is the best segue I've ever had for the second question. And the second question sounds a lot like the first one, but it's not the same. How does walking on water, practicing walking on water, living walking on water, how does that encourage, enhance, unveil, support world peace?
Well, as you said, it's kind of the same answer. The challenge with world peace is that most of us don't believe it's possible. We are so ingrained in our old reality that we've got to keep making more weapons and selling more weapons. I mean, it seems incredulous to me that we somehow think it'll solve problems by making weapons and selling them to both sides of a conflict. So the very first step to world peace is letting go of our belief that it's not possible, and then being willing, again, to take the first step, to fail again, to let go again, to choose again. So each one of us individually is doing our work on that, letting go of our belief in what's possible, creating a new vision of what really is possible.
Thank you. I love that answer. Next question. This is the one the guests usually like the best, because you get to close your eyes and use your imagination. Presuming that every single detail goes exactly the way you want it to go, every event, every occurrence, every every relationship, every activity, every single thing, every decision that you make or gets made about you goes exactly the way you want it to go. 10 years from now, what does Reverend Dr. Claire Summerhill in Walking on Water look like?
That is an amazing question, and I hope that we're all thinking about that and looking into the future. It's interesting because I have a blessed life right now. I have an incredible life, and so part of what I see in 10 years is more of the same, living in a place of each moment being just a precious moment to enjoy being alive, enjoy the beauty of nature, being involved in teaching and sharing the science of mind. It's one of the things I do now that brings me just the greatest joy is seeing people's lives change as new ideas come to them. I've often said that every decade of my life seems like it's been better than the decade before, even though everyone's been amazing. So I think I see in 10 years kind of what I can't even imagine now. Like, who would have thought that at this time in my life, it would continue to just be more amazing, more opportunities to learn, express, share, give, explore. My personal mission in life is to live simply and with joy as I discover and share my unique gifts and talents and encourage and support others in doing the same. And that I see that just continuing to expand in the next 10 years, discovering new things about myself I didn't know, and supporting and encouraging others in discovering and sharing their gifts.
Well, that is definitely easy for me to support because I think it's a great idea. So here's the last question. Will you come back?
Of course, Sharri. I'd love to talk. I guess that's obvious.
So the next opening I have is March the 4th of next year, which gives you, almost a year to finish writing your next book. Should I pencil you in?
I'm in, yes. Thank you, Sharri.
Thank you. And folks, don't miss us next week, because next week we have another wonderful guest. Our visitor next week is Reverend Renee Laboa, and she's a women's health advocate. So she's got some really interesting things to say, and you're not going to want to miss it. In the meantime, have a great week. I love you. Bye.
Amazing, amazing, you will do amazing